by the time we're 14, like every day. So let me elaborate on best friend. Best friend, alcohol. Hanging out together every day. Just a lot of madness follows. In and out of various different rehabs, lots of drinking, lots of drug taking, lots of prison, just in, out, be it rehabs, supported housing, prisons. That was effectively, my life. Because sometimes, I say sometimes, let me take that back, always people deserve a second chance. Sometimes a third chance, sometimes a fourth chance. Sometimes people just need somebody that is going to believe in them.
So, Sam, welcome to GraftCast. Have you always been entrepreneurial?
Gosh, I've always been very invested in passion, I guess I could say. And within that there is, of course, entrepreneurial. I couldn't have it any other way when it comes to business. I want and have always wanted, I guess, uncapped earning potential. I think that's always been very important to me. And the ability to steer a vision in any which way that I want, really, I suppose, to create change and opportunity, which has always been my driving force for business.
So I'd sort of just want to get back to the start, really. Have you always sort of had that entrepreneurial spark or leadership spark when you were growing up?
I think so, yeah. I mean, I think so. I mean, I definitely, I think sometimes you just feel best suited, I had tried on various occasions at younger ages to work, alongside, I say alongside, it's not the correct use of words, but to work for other companies and other businesses. And for me, I guess it was just always something that I struggled with. I struggled to find the passion to get dug into work that wasn't meaningful to me. I think that's where it was at. And, I do believe that to be entrepreneurial, you have to, because it's so tough, you have to choose something that means something to you. You have to be solely invested in what it is that you're doing.
Yeah.
And have a real connection, because it's hard work. It's hard work.
I'd completely agree with that. I think there's times that I would use this sort of phrase in the car, and it's quite simple. It's like when you're building relationships with people who are outside of an entrepreneurship or don't have their own business, they don't quite understand that you have to really think about being where your feet are. Because I find that when I'm with my partner and stuff like that, I'm sort of not quite there, because I'm constantly thinking about my business and constantly thinking about the next growth.
Absolutely. It's an emotional toll, for for the individual, for family. We make sacrifices, we work. How many times have I been told, are you going to stop working now? Are you done?
Yeah.
If you're finished, you've got to have something. In a lot of respects, they're right. You have to find that balance, don't you, between, what is it that drives us forward to create the future that we want, or the stamp on the world that we want to leave, or whatever it happens to be, that can take us so much out of the present moment.
Yeah.
And I think that's why I say that it's so important that you have to have a passion for what you do and the work that you're involved in. Because if you're doing something that you don't emotionally connect to, and that you can't draw something from spiritually or emotionally, then you are, in fact, from my perspective, just wasting life.
Yeah.
Because it can very much take you out of that present moment, and that can be family, that can be, time around, children, or whatever it would be, for everyone it's different. But yeah, that connection to business for me is vital.
So let's just, for the viewers and everything like that, what is it that you do now?
Gosh. So I founded a social enterprise 3 years ago, and that social enterprise was founded with a couple of key words, let's say, as a part of what we do. The first one is opportunity. I wanted to create as much opportunity as I possibly could for people that would be socially excluded. So to create opportunity for others. I have a small piece of writing on the website that says clearly to create opportunities that last longer than we do. I think that's the kind of stamp for me, if you want. Oh, nearly spilled my coffee then. That I want to leave on the world in the business that I do, you know. So to create opportunity. The second is belief. Now, for me, what that means is belief in people that may struggle to still believe in themselves or have not had other people believe in them for a long period of time. So those are the two kind of fundamentals that have driven me in business. With both of those said, what I first needed to do was create for myself and for others, and I'll link the word opportunity to this, a service-based business that would support opportunities for others. So I set about creating I picked window cleaning for no reason, to be honest. No reason whatsoever. It was simply, I've got to a point now where I'm really focused on bringing forward this vision and this dream, and obviously we'll talk a little bit more about what that is in a minute. But I need a service-based company to be able to do that so that I can offer opportunity for others. I was never trying to be a window cleaner. That was never my goal. But what I had to do to start with was learn how to clean windows. And that was a whole journey in itself. So the business started as such. First, I had to learn how to clean a window. The opportunity arose actually because I went down to a well-known gym, huge glass windows, and just by chance she said, oh, "The windows are filthy. It's just filthy." And I went, because I'm very impulsive, and I said, "Oh, I'm a window cleaner." She went, "Are you really, Sam?" And I thought, what have you said? And I went, yeah, I am, yeah. And she said, "Oh, you couldn't quote us for the windows, could you?" And I was like, yeah, of course I can, yeah. Yeah, no worries. So yeah, I did. And I got home. I mean, I've got myself into pickles in my life, I can assure you. And this was a bit of a pickle.
Different kind of a pickle, do you mean?
I went home and I thought, what have you got yourself into now? You know? So anyhow, so I set about learning to clean windows. And let me tell you, I've trained a lot of people to clean windows now, sitting in this seat. For me, it was really hard. For others, they picked it up really quickly. You know, but I've always struggled. You know, I struggled to learn in school. I've struggled to stick with things and stay with things. You know, I've become easily frustrated. You know, it hasn't worked for me. I've still got streaks on the glass. I'm like, oh, I can't do this. But I did something different, which I've never done in my life. And that was, I said to myself, whatever this takes, I'm going to stick at it. Whatever.
Yeah.
You know? And that was a real defining moment for me because I'd never fully committed to myself or been able to commit to myself, whether it's had the mental, I was going to say use the word capacity, but you know, to be able to say, actually, do you know, I'm just going to commit to this, no matter what. And that commitment took me on a journey that was life-changing, frankly. You know, in as much as we built a business, but more so than that, personal growth. So yeah, it was a life-changing, you know, commitment to myself. So going back to Pure Gym and what happened there? Of course, I lived locally, but didn't have a driving license or anything at all at the time. And it was just that entrepreneurial spirit, I think, that we spoke about at the beginning, that just drives something inside you, you know, that wants to, you know, that wants to move forward with business. And I'd chosen window cleaning as, you know, the service that I was going to do. And having spent many frustrating hours on my window at home, putting the soap on and using the squeegee, and I was rubbish. I was just rubbish. There was nothing in it that told me that I should be a window cleaner, you know, because I wouldn't have paid me. You know, I just generally messy, water all over the windowsills, stuff everywhere, streaks on the glass. But I am a perfectionist, and I won't leave it until it's absolutely perfect, you know. And what I didn't do was give up on this, you know. It was for that. Now, I know there's going to be a lot of people listening or watching or whatever it is that, you know, will be like, window cleaning, that's easy. And, I don't argue that fact at all. But for me, I found it difficult, you know. But that, for me, really was more a part of the journey that I then took, because I feel like, you know, it was almost important for me that it was difficult.
Yeah.
You know, it was something that I had to really apply that grit to make sure that, you know, I could move forward with that, really, with the window cleaning. So anyway, I digress. If I do that, just
fine,
you know, move me on quickly. So I went down to Pure Gym, and I walked into Pure Gym, and I thought, well, this is going to be an absolute doddle. There'll be no issues at all. I arrived on my pedal bike. I had a window cleaning bucket and a squeegee, about 6-inch squeegee like that in my hand, and I had this belt on, a window cleaning belt, and I brought a window cleaning cloth. Although actually now I know it's a glass cloth. Window cleaning cloth is something completely different. But anyhow, that's what I had, and a tea towel. So who knows what I looked like walking in there? Probably not a window cleaner, but I was there to clean the windows, and that was a fact. So that's kind of how it went. I walked into Pure Gym, and I thought, this is going to be an absolute doddle. And I spoke with the staff in there. Oh, you come to clean the windows? Yeah, come to clean the windows, yeah. You're window cleaner, I didn't know that. Yeah, I'm a window cleaner, yeah. No, I wasn't. I looked up at the glass. Now, these big old gyms, you get huge glass, like, you know, 12 foot or something. I looked at the squeegee, and I just thought, how am I going to reach that?
Yeah.
Like, that just doesn't make any sense. Surely there's a. Now, of course, I realise nowadays there's poles and there's this and that. And I didn't know any of that stuff. Right, absolutely no idea. How am I going to reach that? And then, of course, it occurred to me, I knew exactly how I was going to reach it. There was an exercise box in the corner, and I thought, well, if I stand on that, I'm about 6'1". So if I stand on that, I'm going to have to jump a bit, but I'll just about get the corners. And I'm embarrassed to tell you that's what I did. And I was red as a beetroot.
Oh, God.
And I was surrounded by, what should we say, very fitness-focused women. And I thought, nobody here thinks I'm a window cleaner anymore. Nobody thinks I'm a window cleaner. And, you know, I'd asked the staff, I said, how long does it normally take them to clean the windows? Oh, they're normally in about 20 minutes, 30 minutes. I said, 20 minutes, 30 minutes? I said, well, no wonder it's such a rubbish job they've done. Do you know how long it took me?
How long?
8 hours it took me.
Oh, my God.
8 hours.
That's well stuck at it, though, isn't it?
8 hours.
Yeah.
And do you know what, when I finished? It looked amazing. And the staff said to me, they said, your windows never looked this good, ever. And I said, well, you know, window cleaner, isn't I? Yeah, proper window cleaner. Oh, I can't, you've been here like 8 hours. So.
Do you remember how much you quoted?
100 quid.
Was it?
100 quid. Yeah, 100 quid. God. Best 100 quid I've ever earned. Best 100 quid I ever earned. Of course, we ended up taking them on, you know, as a customer long term, and, you know, you won't be surprised to know the price went up.
Yeah.
But also the time went down.
Yeah.
Right. You know, it never took me 8 hours again.
Yeah.
It did, you know, it used to take, you know, 3 hours you know, all the rest of the stuff. And you know, I came to realise that, you know, it was something that you could get done pretty quickly once you knew how. And of course, the other thing is the kit. You know, the kit then got better. You know, I went home and I started researching. You know, how do you actually clean glass that's 12 foot away when you're stood on the floor without standing on exercise boxes? Please tell me how. You'll be surprised to know there was an answer. This is amazing, the equipment that's out there for window cleaning. So that was the first kind of, you know, the first introduction, if you will, which is quite. I mean, sometimes I wonder how I end up in these situations. You know, like there's me. I've never cleaned a window in my life. All of a sudden, I'm cleaning windows for one of the biggest commercial gyms in the UK, and I'm thinking, how am I doing this? You know, like what? How have I ended up here? You know, and I guess that's the thing, isn't it? You know, being entrepreneurial is about creating or taking, should I say, opportunities. You know, I love the word opportunity. I just love it. I think there's so much power in that word, you know, from all perspectives. You know, and it is that it's about taking or creating opportunity. You know, when it comes to you, and you know, having the ability, I guess, to be able to see that as well. You know, just actually, do you know what? That's an opportunity there, and I'm going to take it. You know, and
that's something that you've done in your sort of business life, isn't it? Taking that opportunity. Can we just talk a little bit about sort of before that, the part of your life before business, and sort of that road that you took yourself down, I suppose?
Yeah, sure. So yeah, I mean, life was never straightforward for me. You know, when I was younger, I certainly, you know, I would say I struggled. I felt the odd one out in situations. I didn't get on at school. I just struggled. You know, I was just one of those kids that just didn't feel like they fitted in anywhere. I struggled to be around people as much as I kind of branded myself and said I was a people person, which I am. I just felt like I didn't really fit in. I eventually met what I would describe to be as my best friend ever. And I met my best friend when I was probably 13 years old, or thereabouts, and we started hanging out. By the time we're 14, like every day. So let me elaborate on best friend. Best friend, alcohol. Hanging out together every day. That was my childhood, and it became more and more of a thing for me at a very, very young age that I could not deal with the world without being with my best friend. I could not deal with the world without being drunk. You know, because with drink and with alcohol, it gave me something I'd never had. You know, it gave me the ability to be confident. You know, to be out there, to blame something that wasn't me. I was drunk. You know, to just effectively put a layer between me and all the stuff that was going on around me. You know, I was a sensitive kid. You know, I was really sensitive. I couldn't cope with emotions, and I couldn't cope with the world. I couldn't cope with teasing. I just couldn't cope with it. You know, I was just a sensitive kid. And alcohol answered that question for me. You know, solve that problem. Sorry, alcohol solved that problem, and I, honest to God, thought that I'd found alcohol had given me so much that I made a commitment effectively when I was younger that I would just never be without drink, because it was going to give me the life that I wanted.
Yeah.
You know, the only thing that I had to do to make sure that I got that was make sure that I always had drink in me, always. You know, and then that's really how my childhood went in the early years. You know, it was, you know, I was always the one that was at a party. I mean, I was always at a party. You know, I was always the one that was at a party. Rather than enjoying myself, I was making sure that we had enough drink.
Yeah.
You know, I was checking the bottles. I was making sure that the shops were still going to be open. I was making sure that when it come to 6 a.m, we were still going to have bottles of cider. You know, I was that kid. And yeah, it was you know, it's just kind of how it went for me, I suppose. You know, that bond between me and drink, you know, who I've described as my best friend at the time, who later on, by the way, became my worst enemy.
Yeah.
You know, we fell out, man. You know, we really fell out. But yeah, so that was me really when I was younger. Lots of stuff came with that. You know, I wasn't a nice person when I was drinking, although I thought, you know, it was my saving grace.
Yeah.
It got me into lots of trouble. You know, I was very well known by the local police. I was running all over the place like a little nightmare. You know, I mean, I was a little nightmare.
Yeah.
Although at the time, of course, I thought I was a big grown-up man. You know, of course I wasn't. I was just a young boy. You know, hurt and sensitive, but you know, walking around with a big hard I am on my chest.
Yeah.
And yeah, that was, you know, that was kind of how it went up until around about 18. At 18, the local authorities, in fact, because I was such a bit of pain, got together some funding and put me into a rehab. It's actually my 18th birthday I was in rehab. Not perhaps the 18th birthday party that you would imagine, right? Exactly. But for me, that's what it was. And, you know, my 18th kind of, you know, looked like trying to hold dinner on a plate, and my hands were shaking so bad that I couldn't hold it properly, and the potatoes had fallen off. I actually remember throwing it over my shoulder at one point because I couldn't hold it, and having two people either side of me to walk me to a toilet because I was just I was really poorly, you know. And I'd love to tell you that at that young age, I was like, well, clearly this doesn't work for me. Let's try something different. But unfortunately, that wasn't the way it went for me. You know, in rehab, I met more people like me. And I was like, wow, these people actually want to do what I want to do as much as I want to do it. Because remember, where I came from, I was the odd one out.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And I mean, we grew up in a very much you know, like everybody was drinking and taking drugs and all the rest of the gear. But people were like, you know, Friday to Monday. I was like Friday to Friday, you know, like, go home, Sam, you know.
Yeah.
Hell no. You know, the shop opens in 3 minutes. Let's be serious, you know. So yeah, and I guess, you know, the more that I was a pain, the more that I stepped into that, you know, that personality, because whether I was a pain or whether I wasn't, I started to gain acceptance because I was a bit crazy, you know, and crazy people get, I don't want to say the word friends, but, you know, people gravitate. Oh, I'm a bit crazy too. We can all be crazy together. It's just what kids are like, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know. So yeah, so that was kind of early childhood. From my first rehab experience, just a lot of madness followed. You know, in and out of various different rehabs, lots of drinking, lots of drug taking, lots of prison. You know, just in, out, be it rehabs, supported housing, prisons. That was effectively, you know, my life. And yeah, I'm very, very, very lucky to have got to where I am today.
Yeah.
And I don't mean that from where I am in business. I mean, just to be sitting here with breath in my lungs is a miracle. You know, I have flatlined in hospital on multiple occasions. I have, you know, done multiple alcohol detoxes. I've been in some very dangerous situations. I've been in some very serious car crashes. You know, like the fact that I'm sat here is just is nuts. You know, and I'm so grateful that I am. You know, I'm so grateful that I am. All of that said, would I change it? No, I wouldn't. Why wouldn't I? Because it's given me all the experience and the tools that I need to do the work that I do today, which is now, of course, so much more than just window cleaning. It's the whole social arm of the business.
And when you were taking up that first job at Pure Gym, did you envision what you have now as a business at all? Or
yeah. I did, and I think that's really important. You know, like I always did. You know, I've always envisioned what what I want. You know, I truly believe in the power of manifestation.
Yeah.
You know, I think you have to see it before it is there. I'll tell you a little story. I had at one point, not so long ago, in fact, the same time I was doing Pure Gym, I had no driving license. I had a dream to have a Mercedes. I never had a Mercedes. And so the first thing I did was went on eBay and I ordered a Mercedes key. Now, people are going to think, he's bonkers, this lad. He's absolutely, you know, maybe so. But for me, it works, right? So bear with me. I went on eBay, I brought a Mercedes key. Obviously, it doesn't work because I haven't got a car, right? I haven't got a Mercedes, I haven't got a driving license. So never mind that. I brought the key, I put it on my key ring. I started walking around with it in my pocket. Now, you could see that in two ways. You could be like, he's a Fruit Loop. He's walking around as if he's got a Mercedes car and he hasn't even got one. What a loser. But actually, that's not how it was. You know, for me, I brought that key to the car that I was going to park on my drive within 12 months and unlock the car, get in it and drive off. And that's what I was doing. And there was nobody and nothing that was going to stop me. And people said, why have you got a Mercedes car key on your key ring when you don't even own one? And I said, because I will buy that Mercedes within 12 months. I'll put it on the drive. The key will work and I will drive it off. And they went, you're mad, Sam. You're mad. Do you know? And my friend said to me about 8 months later, he said, I actually can't believe that we're driving in a Mercedes. And you said 8 months ago that you were going to buy one and you didn't even have a license. Now, the reason I guess that story gets, you know, more powerful is that not only did I not have a license, but I was also banned beyond the point at which I was driving the car. And I went, it was another 2 years or so. So by law, realistically, I couldn't be driving. But of course, I'm not having that. So I went back to the courts and I said, I'm doing all this stuff, man. And I've got to a point in my window cleaning business where I can't collect pure water anymore. It won't fit in the car. We have to hire a van. I can't afford the cost. I'm trying to grow the business, etc., etc. I'm trying to create opportunities for people coming out of prison. That's what I want to do. This is what the business is about. Please, please, please help me support my business by giving me my license back because I really need it. And it was all true. It was all true. This is not, you know, some blag or because I've done many blags in my life. You know, this was not some manipulation tactic. This was true.
Yep. And
I went back and I said, I need this to be able to continue doing what I'm doing to create more opportunities, to rehabilitate and support people into community. And do you know what he said to me? No, absolutely not. He said, there's no way that a man with your history is going to come back here before me and just think that he's going to get his license back. Absolutely not. And I said, well, when can I reapply? And he said, well, I mean, by law, 3 months, but you won't get it back. And that is what it is. I said, see you in 3 months then. So 3 months later, I went back to the courts, reapplied, rebooked, went back to the courts, and I said, I'm doing all this stuff, but we've now registered a charity too. We haven't spoken about that yet, but we will. I really need my license. He said, you were here 3 months ago. And I told you you wouldn't get it back. And when I saw that you were coming down today, I already decided in my head, and I knew that you were not going to get your license back. You know, it was not a thing. But I'm going to take a risk. And I would really, honestly love to connect, and I plan to at some point, with, you know, the judge that took a risk, because sometimes, I say sometimes, let me take that back, always people deserve a second chance, sometimes a third chance, sometimes a fourth chance. Sometimes people just need somebody that is going to believe in them, that is just going to say, do you know what, actually, I believe in you, even though all of your track record says no, even though everybody else says no, I'm going to believe in you, you know? And he gave me that license back, and I brought the Mercedes, but I also continued to grow the business to create more opportunity for other people.
Yeah.
And there are many, many, many beautiful moments that have happened in my life as a result of that, where I've been back to court with other people that we now support, which we haven't really spoken about yet, but which we now support as an in-between to say, do you know what? Sam, I believe in this person that's in the dock here. I believe in them. You know, just like the judge believed in me, I believe in them. And I want you to believe that I believe in them. And collectively together, let's make a decision that we're going to offer an opportunity and a chance, you know? And then we work very hard to
how does
make that happen.
how do your charities and your business look now?
So the charity was a whole other thing. The charity was founded actually before the business, funnily enough, because that was always the dream. That was always the passion. And the passion was to offer housing for people that are coming out of prison and then offer them belief and opportunity. You know, if I could sum it up, that's what it was. And that's what it is. I mean, that's what it is. You know, we worked extraordinarily hard, of course, to bring to life the charity and the business. The charity was much the charitable status, for anybody that thinks it's an easy thing to get. No, it isn't. And again, you know, like the winter cleaning, I had absolutely no idea. I thought it was just going to be, well, we'll just register this company and that'll be great, and then off we'll pop, and you know, that'll all be grand. And you know, somebody said, have you thought about trustees? And I went, what now? You know, I didn't know what a trustee was. I had no idea. I had no idea. So the first application we got into the Charity Commission was refused. No. And I was like, no? What do you mean? I don't like being told no. No? What do you mean no? It was, you know, I'm like, how can they not see that there's a need for this? I mean, I've sent in, you know, like what, you know, like half a foot's worth of paperwork, you know, which I now know is just ridiculous. It's not about how much you write, it's the way you write it. You know, it's a language. It's like learning a new language. So eventually, of course, you know, resilience, grit, if you want, you know, you keep going back. You have to. You know, this is the thing. If you have a vision and a passion, you know, and you think, I want that more than anything, don't ever for 1 minute think it's going to be easy, because it isn't. It isn't. It's going to be hard work, and you need great determination. You know, you need to not give up. You need to pick a couple of things and just not give up, because the amount of times when I was building, for example, the window cleaning business, and I was pedaling with no driving license up hills, up to 85 or 90 kilos of water, on a normal bike, no electric, up and down hills, to the point where I was in hospital. I had chest x-rays because I was so poorly. I lost so much weight, and some will say that's ridiculous. And in some ways it is, but it's grit and it's determination. And it's when nobody else is out here cleaning windows because it's snowing, I'm out here cleaning windows on a pedal bike because I know that I need to put the work in to make this stuff happen, you know, because I'm a bit behind in my life. You know, I'm lacking like 20 years here, you know, I'm just starting, you know, and that's not because I was lazy or I just dossed around. That's because I was on a whirlwind of a love and hate relationship, which I've spoken about. Yeah. And that was obviously alcohol, you know, and all the stuff that kind of brought up and tore down in my life.
And so when we sort of go through these podcasts, we sort of ask the question: is there anything that you've sort of learnt in particular in business and in life that has really sort of rung true?
Ask. I think for me, ask has been such a huge part of everything that I've done, you know. If you don't know, ask. And if the person you ask doesn't know, they might know someone that does. And I say it to all of our residents now, within the charity arm, you know, we started with one house. It's a whole other story. It's probably another podcast there.
Yeah. Well, we have said, haven't we?
There's now 6 soon to be 6 properties, soon to be 24 residents. It's grown rapidly. You know, we are, we've been supported by Thames Valley Police and, you know, probation and all the rest of the stuff, which is great. I now talk a lot with the residents, you know, about this type of stuff. And of course, it always twigs my ear if you want, when people talk about, I want to start a little business, I want to do this. I'm like, let's get a coffee then, because, you know, I want to know, you know. And one of the things that we always say is, you know, like, just ask if you don't know, you know, because nobody can ever be expected to know everything. I certainly didn't, you know. I knew nothing when I started. I knew nothing. But interestingly, I thought I knew everything. You know, and that's the thing. Sometimes it's just a little bit of humbling to say, actually, you know. And now, you know, despite where I am, you know, people might look and think, oh, he must, you know, he knows everything. How's he? You know, I knew nothing, and I still know next to nothing. You know, in truth, you know, there are so many people out there that know so much more than me. You know, and now I'm excited that I can tap into that, because I can humbly ask.
Yeah.
And say, you know, I'm running this organisation here. We've got a team of people. We've got a team of window cleaners. We've got X amount of residents. And I've got no idea how to do this. You know, I need some help. So I ask.
There's definitely some comparisons there to a lot of sort of what me and Jack do and everything like that. It's definitely almost like winging it the whole time. 100%.
And do you know what? I think that's, it's interesting you say that, because I think that's been a really well-known phrase amongst the entrepreneurial community, you know, is that we are, in fact, all just winging it.
Yeah.
And it's the people that have, you know, the I mean, it's almost cheeky, isn't it, sometimes? It's almost cheeky, you know, whatever somebody's story be, whether it's that you walked in and said, yeah, I mean, I'm a window cleaner, or whether it's you stood there in front of a group of people and said, yeah, we know exactly what we're doing. We're professionals, you know. At the end of the day, you have to start somewhere.
Yeah.
But there's also another saying, isn't there, which is very well known, which is the whole fake it till you make it, you know. Because in reality, eventually, you know, like now, you give me a squeegee in a bucket and I'll clean that window in seconds and it will be immaculate, because I'm really good at what I do, you know. And in actual fact, of course, now life's moved on, I don't clean windows anymore, but I've cleaned a lot of windows, let me tell you, you know. And, you know, and it just takes that, you know, it takes that time, you know, and we do, you know, we have to fake it till we make it. We have to wing it, you know. And in a way, that's the beauty of the entrepreneurial journey, right? You know, that's the joy. Yeah. You know, it's just about getting out there and just saying, hey, you know, like, I know exactly what I'm doing. Exactly. And only the entrepreneurial folk go, you ain't got a clue what he's doing. But that's all right, because neither do we. Yeah. You know? And I think that's quite a beautiful thing, really.
Well, Sam, you've been brilliant today. It's been awesome to have you. And I quite honestly think you are the definition of what this podcast is, Graft. So thank you so much for coming on.
Oh, thanks so much for having me. And, you know, just before we finish, I have to, of course, you know, show gratitude to you guys for, you know, putting this podcast together, and importantly to all of my team, Joe, our MD, Unrebel, Tracy, Billy, Tom, all the volunteers, all the residents of the charity. There is a huge amount of gratitude to have, because whenever we get places in life, we do not do it on our own. And I would not be where I am today without all the people that I have around me.
Thank you, Sam.
Thanks for having me.
Awesome.